The world of 14th century Europe is a place of stark contrasts. Great cathedrals reach for the heavens, but life on the ground is often short and brutal. Towns are a tangle of wood and plaster, narrow lanes thick with mud and waste. People live packed together with livestock. Night brings deep darkness, broken only by a candle or a hearth. The line between the known and unknown is thin. Life is precarious, governed by the seasons, the harvest, and the ever-present threats of hunger, war, disease. Faith is strong, superstition stronger. People seek explanations for hardship, failed crops, sudden illness, rarely mere chance. A sign, a message from God, or the work of something sinister. The devil and his demons are thought to walk the earth. Fear of the supernatural makes people watch for omens. People look for scapegoats. They blame outsiders, heretics, sometimes the quiet creatures among them. The unknown breeds anxiety. Fear finds fertile ground. Cats are familiar here. They prowl granaries and alleys, hunting mice and rats. Many keep them for pest control. Yet cats are creatures of the night. They move with a silent, unnerving grace. Their eyes gleam in firelight. Their independence sets them apart from dogs and livestock. That mystery is easily twisted into malice. Suspicion bubbles beneath daily life, passed down as folk belief. Stories circulate of animals watching with unnatural intelligence. Households keep cats, but mistrust is planted. Religious doctrine and hysteria will water that seed. The cat, a simple predator, will be cast as a villain in a larger drama. Its place in the world is about to become dangerously uncertain. The fear of cats does not emerge from a vacuum. It is woven into a larger and more terrifying tapestry. The fear of witchcraft. In the mindset of medieval Europe, the world is a spiritual battleground. Witches are believed to have made pacts with the devil, gaining supernatural powers in exchange for their souls. They are blamed for blighting crops, sickening children, souring milk. The Church seeks to unify doctrine and stamp out heresy. In the 13th and 14th centuries, official pronouncements codify links between evil witchcraft, certain animals. The cat becomes a prime suspect. Pope Gregory IX issues the papal bull Vox in Rama in 1233, explicitly linking black cats to diabolical rituals. The document describes worshippers kissing a black cat as fealty to the devil. Though aimed at a group in Germany, the message spreads across Europe. The idea travels via sermons and religious teaching. The cat becomes an icon of heresy, a familiar of witches, a vessel for demonic spirits. Official condemnation sanctifies a folk fear. Suspicion becomes self-fulfilling. Someone seen talking to their cat is suspected of communing with a demon. Tales of witches transforming into cats, spying on neighbors traveling unseen at night. Taverns and marketplaces replay and embellish these stories. The cat's stealth and nocturnal habits are recast as sinister proof. Fear hardens into violent action in some regions. People believe eliminating cats cleanses their communities. Organized, ritualized cruelty begins. In places like Ypres, in modern Belgium, the Belfry cat tradition takes hold. During festivals, cats are rounded up, stuffed into barrels, burned in bonfires. Participants call it symbolic purification, to drive out the devil and save their souls. They see it as a spiritual war. In eradicating the threat, they systematically remove a key urban predator. This will have devastating, unforeseen consequences. In October 1347, 12 Genoese trading ships limp into the Sicilian port of Messina. The sailors who are still alive are gravely ill, covered in black boils that ooze blood and pus. The Sicilian authorities, horrified by the specter of death aboard the vessels, quickly order the fleet to leave. But it is too late. The sickness is already ashore. This is Europe's first encounter with the pestilence that will become known as the Black Death. A disease of terrifying speed and lethality, it will redraw the map of the continent and change the course of history. It is a biological crisis, but for the people living through it, it feels like the apocalypse. The plague is caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. It attacks the body in several gruesome ways. The most common form is bubonic plague, which causes the lymph nodes in the armpits, neck, groin to swell into painful, egg-sized lumps called buboes. These turn black as the tissue dies, giving the disease its name. Victims suffer from high fevers, vomiting, delirium, before most die within a week. Another form, pneumonic plague, attacks the lungs and is spread through airborne droplets from a cough. It is even more contagious and almost always fatal. A third, septicemic plague, infects the bloodstream, causing death so quickly that buboes may not even have time to form. The disease spreads with horrifying efficiency. From Messina, it moves to the Italian mainland. By January 1348, it is in Genoa, Venice. It follows the busy trade routes, traveling by ship to Marseille, then up the Rhone River into France. It crosses the English Channel in the summer of 1348, arriving in the south of England. From there, it radiates outward, carried by merchants, pilgrims, soldiers, and fleeing refugees. No one understands what is causing the sickness. They blame poisoned wells, unfavorable alignments of the planets, a corrupt atmosphere, a miasma. Above all, they see it as a manifestation of God's wrath, a punishment for the sins of mankind. The response is one of panic and despair. Doctors are powerless, their traditional remedies of bloodletting and herbal poultices useless. Priests who try to comfort the dying often contract the disease themselves and perish. Social order begins to break down. People abandon their families, leaving the sick to die alone. Fields are left unplowed and animals wander unattended. In the cities, the problem of burying the dead becomes overwhelming. Mass graves are dug, great pits where bodies are layered like lasagna with dirt. The stench of death hangs heavy in the air. Europe is a continent in the grip of a terror it cannot comprehend or control. While Europeans look to the heavens or their neighbors for a cause, the true culprit is small and travels close to the ground. The Black Death is, at its heart, a disease of rodents. Modern science has shown that Yersinia pestis thrives within populations of wild rodents, such as marmots in Central Asia. The bacterium is transmitted between these animals by fleas. When a flea bites an infected rodent, it ingests the bacteria. The bacteria then multiply inside the flea's gut, forming a blockage. Starving and desperate to feed the flea bites new hosts with increasing frenzy, regurgitating a slurry of bacteria into each new bite wound, thereby spreading the infection. The agent that brings this disease into human cities is the black rat, Rattus rattus. This is not the large sewer rat of modern times, but a smaller, agile climber. It lives in close proximity to people nesting in the thatched roofs, wooden walls, cluttered storerooms of medieval homes. It thrives on spilled grain and human waste. Critically, it is a host for the oriental rat flea, Xenocilla chaopes, the most efficient vector for transmitting plague to humans. As the plague kills off its rat hosts, the infected fleas abandon the cooling corpses and seek new sources of blood. They find it on the humans living just inches away. The spread of the plague is therefore a story of logistics. The rats and their fleas are expert stowaways. They travel in the holds of ships, hidden among grain sacks, cloth bales, and other cargo. When a ship docks at a port, the rats scurry ashore carrying their deadly microscopic passengers with them. From the port, they infest the warehouses and homes of the city. As the local rat population becomes infected and dies, the fleas move on to human hosts, starting an epidemic. The disease then moves inland following the paths of human commerce. It travels in carts and merchants' packs and on the bodies of people who are infected but not yet showing symptoms. This biological mechanism was completely invisible to the people of the 14th century. They saw their neighbors fall sick, but they did not see the fleas. They might have noticed rats, but rats were a common, everyday nuisance, and their numbers were not immediately connected to the wave of death. This ignorance of the true cause of the plague was a critical weakness. It meant that all of their efforts to stop the disease were misdirected. They prayed, they held processions, and they blamed minorities. All while the real engine of the plague, the rat and flea cycle, continued to operate unseen and unopposed, right under their noses. In the decades leading up to the Black Death, a current of anti-cat sentiment is already flowing through parts of Europe. Fueled by religious dogma and superstitious fear, this sentiment leads to the persecution of cats in some communities. It is important for historians to be precise here. This was not a continent-wide, centrally organized extermination campaign. Instead, it was a patchwork of local customs and periodic outbursts of violence. In some towns, the killing of cats is a ritualized part of festivals. In others, it is a sporadic reaction to accusations of witchcraft. The result, however, is the same. In these specific areas, the local cat population is significantly reduced. This reduction creates an ecological vacuum. Cats are one of the primary predators of rats in an urban environment. A healthy population of town cats, both feral and domestic, acts as a natural check on the rat population. They hunt adult rats, but more importantly, they are highly effective at catching and killing young, inexperienced rats. This constant predatory pressure helps to keep the number of rodents from exploding. When this pressure is removed, the balance shifts. With fewer hunters stalking the alleys and granaries, the rats face one less threat. They are free to breed with even greater success. Rat populations are notoriously resilient and can grow exponentially under the right conditions. A single pair of rats can produce several hundred offspring in a year. In towns where cats have been systematically killed, rat numbers can climb unchecked. More rats mean more food for fleas, allowing the flea population to grow as well. The stage is perfectly set for an epizootic, an epidemic among animals. When the plague-infected fleas arrive on new rats from a visiting ship, they find a dense, thriving population of hosts to infect. This creates a much larger reservoir of the disease. The link is a matter of logic, but it is one that historians debate the scale of. Some scholars argue that the rat population was already so large and widespread that the presence of cats would have made little difference. They point out that the plague also spread in regions where cats were not persecuted. However, other historians contend that in the densely packed, unsanitary conditions of a medieval town, any factor that allowed the rat population to increase would have significantly amplified the plague's spread. The killing of cats was not the cause of the Black Death, but in the places where it occurred, it likely stripped the community of a crucial line of defense, making a bad situation catastrophically worse. The Black Death cuts a swathe of destruction through Europe that is difficult to comprehend. It is not a single continuous event, but a series of waves. The first and most devastating wave lasts from 1347 to 1351. It moves with a terrifying and seemingly unstoppable momentum. After securing a foothold in Italy and France, it pushes north into the Holy Roman Empire, the Low Countries, and England. By 1349, it has reached Wales, Ireland, and Scotland. By 1350, it is ravaging Scandinavia and has pushed deep into Germany and Poland. It even reaches the remote shores of Greenland, where it contributes to the eventual collapse of the Norse colony. The death toll is staggering. It is impossible to know the exact numbers, but most modern historians estimate that between 1/3 and 1/2 of Europe's entire population perishes in this first wave. In some areas, the mortality rate is much higher. Certain cities, like Florence and Siena, may have lost up to 60% of their residents. Entire villages are wiped off the map, their homes left empty and their fields fallow. The psychological impact is just as profound as the demographic. The world feels as if it is ending. The medieval writer Agnolo di Tura, living in Siena, records the horror.
And I, Agnolo di Tura, buried my 5 children with my own hands. So many died that all believed it was the end of the world, he writes. You know.
Society is thrown into turmoil. The sheer scale of the death toll rips apart the very fabric of the feudal system. With so many peasants dead, labor becomes scarce. This gives the surviving workers unprecedented bargaining power. They can demand higher wages and better conditions, a shift that begins to erode the power of the land-owning aristocracy. The church is also weakened. Its inability to stop the plague or even explain it convincingly shakes the faith of many. At the same time, a dark wave of fanaticism and violence sweeps through many communities as people desperately seek someone to blame. This search for scapegoats leads to horrific pogroms against Jewish communities, particularly in the Rhineland and France. Falsely accused of causing the plague by poisoning wells, thousands of Jews are massacred. Elsewhere, groups of flagellants emerge, wandering from town to town, whipping themselves in public displays of penance, believing their self-inflicted suffering will appease God's anger. These processions, however, often help to spread the plague further. The Black Death is not just a medical crisis. It is a social, economic, and spiritual catastrophe that will leave deep scars on the European psyche for centuries to come. In the aftermath of the first great wave of plague, Europe is a changed world. It is a quieter, emptier place. The immediate terror subsides, but the disease does not disappear. It becomes endemic, returning in smaller, more localized outbreaks every decade or so for the next 300 years. These subsequent waves are less devastating than the first, perhaps due to increased immunity in the population, or changes in the virulence of the bacterium. But they serve as a constant, grim reminder of the pestilence. In this new reality, people slowly and often unconsciously begin to reevaluate their relationship with the world around them. The practical value of cats begins to reassert itself. In a world where food is precious and labor is scarce, protecting grain stores from rodents is more important than ever. Farmers, merchants, householders, a cat in the barn, a cat in the kitchen. While the deep-seated fears about witchcraft and the devil do not vanish overnight, the immediate, tangible benefit of having a predator control the vermin starts to outweigh abstract, superstitious anxieties. This shift is subtle and gradual. There is no grand decree declaring cats to be good. Instead, it happens household by household, town by town. Cats are brought back onto ships to control the rats that infest the cargo holds. They are welcomed back into homes to keep cellars clear and pantries clear. Art from the late medieval and Renaissance periods begins to reflect this change. Cats appear more frequently in domestic scenes, sleeping on cushions, or playing with their owners. They are shown as part of the household, integrated into daily life. A far cry from the demonic figures of earlier folklore. This gradual rehabilitation of the cat's image has a quiet but significant public health benefit. As cat populations recover in urban centers, they once again begin to exert predatory pressure on the rat population. This does not eradicate the rats, nor does it single-handedly stop the plague. The disease cycle is complex and involves many factors. However, by helping to suppress the number of the plague's primary animal host, the cats contribute to a less favorable environment for outbreaks. They are unwitting allies in the long fight against the pestilence, their nightly hunts a small but constant act of public health. Looking back from the 21st century, with the tools of microbiology and archaeology, we can see the story of the Black Death with a clarity that was impossible for those who lived through it. We can analyze the DNA of Yersinia pestis from the teeth of plague victims in mass graves. We can study rat bones found in archaeological digs and map their distribution. We can read climate data locked in tree rings and ice cores to see how environmental shifts affected rodent populations. These tools let us piece together the complex puzzle connecting bacteria, fleas, rats, humans. This scientific perspective highlights the tragic irony. In their desperate search for answers, the people of the 14th century focused on supernatural and moral explanations. They saw the plague as divine punishment or diabolical mischief. That led to actions that were ineffective and sometimes counterproductive. The persecution of cats in some regions is a prime example. Driven by fear of witchcraft, people eliminated a natural predator that kept down the animals spreading disease. It was like shooting the guard dog because one feared its bark. The lesson is stark. Fear born of ignorance is a dangerous guide. It simplifies complex problems into easy enemies. It encourages lashing out at scapegoats rather than confronting invisible realities. People then lacked the knowledge of germ theory. They could not see bacteria or fleas. They acted within a world of demons and divine wrath. Their misunderstanding deepened their suffering. This is not to judge with hindsight. It's to recognize a recurring human pattern. Faced with an inexplicable threat, the impulse to blame is strong. The Cats and Plague story is a case study of that impulse. It shows how misguided beliefs can dismantle defenses. It reminds us nature works on biological and ecological rules. Ignoring those rules, even with good intentions, can be catastrophic. The Black Death was a crucible that forged a new Europe. The continent that emerged from the plague years was haunted, transformed. The massive loss of life accelerated profound change, economic and social changes, contributing to the decline of feudalism and the rise of a new middle class. It left a deep cultural scar, a fascination with mortality and the fragility of life that permeated art and literature for generations. In the long run, the utter failure of the old ways of thinking of superstition, magic, and misdirected piety to stop the disease may have helped clear the ground for new ideas to grow. The slow, pragmatic return of the cat to European households is a small but significant part of this story. It represents a victory of practical observation over superstitious fear. People noticed that where there were cats, there were fewer rats. In a world that had been turned upside down by an invisible enemy, this simple, observable fact was a piece of solid ground. The cat was not a hero. It was an animal acting on its instincts, but in doing so, it served a vital function. Its utility was a fact. In the long struggle between fear and fact, facts eventually have a way of asserting themselves, especially when survival is at stake. The story of the Black Death and the Cats is more than a historical curiosity. It is a parable for our own time. We still face complex, frightening threats, new pandemics, global climate change. The temptation to find simple enemies, to blame scapegoats, and to retreat into the comfort of ideology over the difficult work of science and reason is as powerful today as it was 700 years ago. The medieval war on cats is a chilling reminder of where that path can lead. It shows how we can, in a fit of fear, declare war on our own allies. Ultimately, the lesson is one of humility and vigilance. It calls on us to question our fears, to challenge our assumptions, and to respect the complex, interconnected systems of the world we inhabit. The quiet guardian of the night, the small hunter, did not know the cost of human fear, but its absence was felt in the starkest of terms. The balance it helped to maintain was one people destroyed and later had to rebuild. When we choose to see the world as it is, to follow the facts wherever they lead, we not only protect ourselves, we honor the quiet helpers, the unwitting allies who contribute to our survival. We choose a world governed not by terror, but by knowledge.